My saving grace right now is that the Eagles are just going to implode again down the stretch, and we kind of catch them sleeping there. Then,
Sean, they're not.
Not the zoom in.
I pressed the wrong button. My camera
This is
started
why it
auto-tracking
pays
me.
to watch the stream.
Sean, they're not.
Oh.
Actually, no. Let's do this. One better. They're not, Sean. Okay.
And speaking of getting the party started.
For the victory lap, though. They ain't never seen nothing like this before. Lit the room when I came through the front door. Ask me if I stress overcome, what for? Train in the trees, please pardon my sycamore. Touch burning sands, cross lands, and stormy shore seasons in the year, yeah. Twist gears, with keeping haters in the rear. At the blood, sweat, and tears, and my goal so near. I see my victory so clear. I see my victory so clear. It's a J, we break through. 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 It's a J, we break through.
What's up, everybody? It is that time of the week again. Time for everybody's favorite podcast covering exclusively Formula One and football, our two loves. It's the Gridiron Podcast, what episode is it? 45 to be specific. And as I read this, you know what episode this is. It's the Chris Fuamatu Ma'afala episode. Nick, I can hear it now. Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law. Oh, come on. Sing it with me. Yes.
What is it?
If you don't know who that is, by the way,
coming down from the gallows,
it's catchy.
and
You got to sing it.
Have very long.
If you don't know who Chris Fuamatu Ma'afala is, an old Steeler fullback, and basically put the nail in the coffin of that. What was it? 2002.
I don't want to
AFC
talk about it.
All right,
still
that was the
hurts.
first time, and that game was the first time that Renegade by Styx was played at Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium. But we won't get into that. It is very appropriate tonight because we do have a Steelers fan joining us later on in this podcast. Because as we do on the Gridiron Podcast, we are previewing NFL divisions week by week, and this week it is the AFC North. We have an entire race to get through later on as well. The Dutch Grand Prix. Is it the Grand Prix of the Netherlands? The Dutch Grand Prix, right?
Dutch.
Holland. Dutch, as Katie would say.
Same wavelength.
Everyone's back from summer break, so we've got a lot to get to into this podcast tonight. But first, guys, how you doing? By the way, I forgot our intros. I'm Sean Barie. That's Nick Shook. That's Katie Caldwell. If this is your first time watching us, welcome. If you're confused, Nick Shook is the guy up in the left-hand corner where it says The Nick Shook. And Katie Caldwell, our Canadian queen, is up in the right-hand corner, holding it down in Kimberley, British Columbia. So I ask again, guys, how you doing this week?
I feel great today. I am super excited about our guest. This has been a long time coming.
Guest? What
Yeah.
guest? We have a guest?
Yes, we have a guest. She's waiting backstage, as StreamYard calls it. And I was fortunate to meet the friend of Katie that is coming on the show. She's quite a pleasant individual, and I'm very excited to have her on the show.
Well, then, without more gilding the lily, Katie, introduce our guest.
Our guest today is a sports reporter, producer, editor, master interviewer. This person can do it all. Her most recent job venture was
sitting
Bleacher
right here,
Report
Katie.
For 3.5 years. She has covered 2 Super Bowl radio rows with Galvanize and most recently NBC Sports. She is a lifelong Steelers fan and, most importantly, one of my closest friends on the entire planet. I'm honored to introduce Drew Jones.
Yay!
Hello, friend.
Ooh, thank you for that intro. That was great. And I'll tell you, there's 2 things. Hold on, real quick. 2 things I don't like: people that judge other people's cultures, and the Dutch. Sorry.
Drew, you're welcome anytime. If you're going to come here and quote Austin Powers, you are welcome
I
anytime.
was going to say, if you can name the movie, brownie points for all of you.
I have used that GIF at least 20 times over the last couple of years, covering and watching Formula One. Are you a Formula One fan at all? Do you follow it at all? Any Formula One?
Not entirely. I feel like I would love to get into it because I just want to be like one of those rich girls that's like watching. I would love to be one of those people. I'm just not there yet.
And we all want to be one of those rich girls just watching. Well, that's okay. We brought you in to talk NFC North. We talked, or not, AFC North rather. Excuse me. We brought you in to talk about football. Guys, you know what? As we record at 9:46 at night, it's been a week and it's only Tuesday, as I said in the break room. So yeah, let's get right into it. We're doing our AFC North divisional preview today. It is the division that Nick and I hold dear to our hearts, and Drew as well. But this week, Nick, you're outnumbered. Sorry, buddy.
I mean, that's
so how we do this, Drew, is we go through every team's schedule, starting with the division champion, and we're working our way down. And then off the top of my head, out of the Sean Barie Sportsbook, I just pop out an over-under wins total. It is not based in science. I have done little to no research. It's just kind of a gut feeling on what I think is going to happen. Sometimes it's spot on. Other times we are way off the mark. And I say we because, what was it, last week when we did the Rams preview?
LA Rams.
Yeah, it was the Rams, and we all said that they were going to win like 6 games last year, and they won 10. So we're not perfect, but you know what? Neither is Vegas, so it's okay. It all evens out in the end, and the house always wins. All right, Nick, starting off the AFC divisional preview, starting off with those Dirty Birds down in Baltimore. Let's bring them up.
Well, as we always do on this podcast, it takes me a second or two to pull up the schedule. And here it is if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitch. You can always find us there, replay later on the Twitch page or on YouTube.
This graphic.
Where
yes, please. You can also email us at the Gridiron 3. Damn those other two. The Gridiron 3. What is it? The Gridiron 3. The Gridiron Podcast 3. Thank you. Who made this long email?
Huh. I wonder.
The Gridiron Podcast 3 at gmail.com. We'll throw it up in the lower third later. But starting off our AFC North division preview with the Ravens. Week 1, they're taking on the Chiefs on the road. I believe that's the season kickoff Thursday night. Week 2, home against the Raiders. 3 on the road against the Cowboys. Home against the Bills. Week 5 on the road against the Bengals. Week 6 back at home against the Commanders. Week 7 and 8 on the road against the Bucs and Browns. Then the Broncos at home. Week 9 back at home. Week 10 as well against the Bengals. Then you've got the Steelers and Chargers on the road. Weeks 11 and 12. Week 13 you've got the Eagles, and then a really late bye week. Week 14. 15 back on the road against the Giants. Week 16 at home against the Steelers. 17 on the road against the Texans, and then back at home to finish things off against the Browns. Week 18. I look at this on paper, and I think this is a first-place schedule because there is not a lot of weak spots in this schedule. But then again, this is probably the most complete team in the AFC North. That being said, man, this is a really hard schedule. The football gods were not kind to a lot of AFC North teams.
Well, it's a first-place schedule in the AFC North.
It is, exactly.
Teams, so,
and I feel like I'm just stalling for time here, but I'm going to set the line high just because, I mean, they're on paper a really good football team. So I'm going to say over under 11.5.
He always does this. He always does this.
That is very high.
Katie.
Drew, you can start us off. You're the guest. You're the honored guest. Start us off, Drew.
I don't know. It's tough to say because I feel like, I don't know, any AFC North team, I'm going to include the Browns in this one, can beat any NFC East team. So that's just kind of how I feel about the NFC East right now. But I think I might have to go. They might be going like right at 11. So I'm going to go under.
Okay.
I think that does feel really high. I have 11 and 6, maybe 10 and 7. Like this feels like a really big year for this team. Like Lamar Jackson is in the conversation for me of best quarterback to not make it to a Super Bowl officially. I really thought last season could be it. Like they looked so good. I was thinking about this today. Do you guys remember those color conspiracy theories that ended up not materializing at all, where everybody was like, oh, it's going to be the
Super Bowl logo is purple and red. It's going to be the Niners and Ravens. It's part of the script.
But I think it does speak to like the Ravens did really look that good that people thought that they were going to be in that game. But I'm really stoked on this offense. They do have 3 new starters on the offensive line, but there's so much that I like about this team. They've got Lamar Jackson, and then they add Derrick Henry to that run game. The schedule is tough, like you said, like in the division is crazy, but then you've got the Chiefs, Cowboys, Bills. Like the question for them, can they put it all together? Can they stay healthy? Because like I said, I feel like this is a really big year for the team. go out and make a statement first week against the Chiefs.
This is a team that people who have not followed them closely in the offseason will think can just run it right back. What they fail to realize is that they lost their defensive coordinator, who was the mastermind behind them becoming such a strong defense down the back half of the season last year, and Mike McDonald. He's now the head coach in Seattle. They lost another defensive assistant in Anthony Weaver, who's the defensive coordinator in Miami. They are bringing Zach Orr, a former linebacker for them, who is now an assistant and has become the defensive coordinator for this team. They're bringing him into the fold. They lost a lot on the staff. They lost another coach elsewhere from the defensive staff. There's been a bit of an exodus. Other teams, and this is what happens when you win, other teams come in and they take your coaches. They pillage your roster. This is just what they do. And the Ravens have certainly dealt with this. But at the same time, if you look at them on paper, they're still pretty strong. I mean, Roquan Smith is a dog. He's the center of that defense. Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams might be one of the better safety tandems in the NFL. Kyle Hamilton himself has just been fantastic, especially last year. I'm curious to see how this linebacking core adjusts. They lost Patrick Queen. Trenton Simpson's in there now. They brought back Kyle Van Noy, a veteran edge rusher. He was productive for them last year. Depth might be a slight concern, but Nate Wiggins had a good start to his preseason before he got hurt. This could be a big boomer bust team, but the bust won't even be that bad. I had him at 11 or 12 wins, so I'm actually going to take the over and go against everything. But it's not going to be an easy road to get there because of the schedule that we just discussed. The weird thing about the schedule, they have one homestand between weeks 9 and week 10. That's with the Broncos and the Bengals. And we know these division games are going to be tough. They get a late bye, but it might be kind of a fortunate bye because it preps them for that last month. And again, they end with a division showdown. They end with a hell of a 3-game stretch, really. They play the Steelers at home. They go on the road to Houston, and then they play the Browns at home. That could decide the division, that stretch right there. So it's not going to be an easy path to 12 wins. But I think based on what they did last year and the fact they have a 2-time MVP at quarterback and they got Derrick Henry to balance out that running game, and year 2 of the Todd Monken offense, we're going to open it up. Everybody watch out. Lamar's going to make pre-snap adjustments, and we're going to be great. I still think after they won 13 games last year, they could probably win 12 this year and make it a really tight race for this division.
I'm going to just start off this entire division preview by here's my rule about the AFC North. Every team goes 3-3 in the division. That's the baseline I work with because these teams beat each other senseless and they beat each other bloody. Except for the Steelers, apparently, who just have the Ravens' number for some reason over the past couple of years, which I'm not complaining about.
The Ravens also kind of gave them that win last year in Pittsburgh.
They gave them several wins. They gave them both wins. Like Lamar Jackson, the first game, he gave them that win. And the second one, they didn't play their starters. Yeah, I know, I get it. But still, for some reason, the Steelers just beat the Ravens. Man, this division is so hard to do. I'm also going to take the over just because, and it pains me to say, I mean, this is on paper the best team in the division. And something about my gut feeling, the vibe check with Lamar Jackson this year, he's coming off that MVP season. He has something to prove. Everyone says, yeah, he's great, but he can't win in the playoffs. That's becoming the narrative around him. Joe Burrow did it in year 2, almost did it in year 3. I think Lamar has something to prove. I'm going to take the over right at 12 wins.
Drew, I wanted to throw it back to you, too. I should have explained before that after you make your pick, you're allowed to share any Ravens thoughts you have. So feel free to jump in, too.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think what's interesting is they're kind of coming into this season and they're not going to have the Lamar contract thing hanging over their heads the entire season. I felt like that just kind of, even though they had a really good year last year, just kind of, that was just a sour point. And so, I don't know. I hate them so much that I want them to lose every game. That is certainly not the reality. But I know definitely they're going to lose at least 2 games this season, and that's going to be to the Steelers.
You know what?
I think the under.
Collectively, Drew and I are changing our answers. We're taking the under. They're going winless.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the spirit.
Exactly. Derrick Henry, who?
Yeah, you got your king, but we got our queen. I don't know. That doesn't sound great. Something about chess where the queen checks the king. I don't know.
That
get it?
All
right,
yeah. But that whole move felt a little incestuous anyway. We'll get there later.
A little bit. All right, that's the Ravens. Nick, throw up the Steelers.
We're not going to go by order of finish last year, Sean.
Yeah, let's save the Steelers, Sean.
That's usually how we go, Sean.
The
Did
longest
the Steelers not finish second in the division?
No,
the Browns did.
Browns did.
Oh,
the Browns did.
You know.
Short-term memory, man. Short-term memory. All right, I guess we're doing the Browns then. Who knew?
Sucks
anyway, the Browns starting their season off. starting their season off week 1 against the Cowboys at home. Week 2 on the road against the Jags. Week 3, Giants at home. Weeks 4, 5, 6, all on the road against the Raiders, Commies, and Eagles. Then they get a 3-week homestand against the Bengals, Ravens, and Chargers. Their bye week is week 10, on the road week 11 against the Saints. Then they're down in Pittsburgh for week 12, weeks 13 and 14 on the road against the Broncos and Steelers again. Man, who made this schedule? Chiefs, week 15, week 16 in Cincy, then week 17 in Miami, and then week 18, wrapping things up, of course, as we just mentioned, against the Ravens on the road. I don't know what the Browns are this year.
Nobody does.
And I feel like you could say that about 3 of the 4 teams in this division. I don't know what the Browns are this year because, for me, a lot of this hinges on, is Deshaun Watson finally going to make that leap into that star quarterback role again that the Browns hoped he was going to be when they paid him $230 guaranteed million that we saw in Houston before all of that off the field stuff happened. Like, is he going to make that jump? The defense is fine. Like, I'm like, on paper, this is a solid football team. They deserve to be in the playoffs. They deserve apparently to finish second in the division. But again, it all hinges on, can Deshaun do this? Or are we going to have to rely on Joe Flacco to come off the bench? I know he's not on the team anymore, but like some sort of miracle run to happen. Like last year should not have happened. It did. The pixie dust finally ran out. So I'm going to set the line at 9.5.
I like that.
You like that?
Drew, do you want to start?
You like that?
Sorry, I feel like we should let the resident Browns fan.
No, you don't want to do that. No, John always complains every time I go before him that because I take all his points. So this is on you, Drew.
Okay.
You always go before me anyway.
I don't know. I'm kind of with you all as far as like, I don't really know what they are. They don't even know what they are. What mascot's actually going to the 50-yard line? Who knows? Is it an elf? Is it a dog? Is it poop? Who can tell? I feel like the second half of the Browns schedule is, besides the Broncos, is low-key kind of a doozy. So I'm gonna go with the under on this one again, because I feel like the Browns are always gonna Browns. And that's just how I feel as a Steelers fan. But
nameless gray faces, yeah.
Say it one time for people in the back. The Browns is gonna Brown.
They do have some depth at quarterback, so even if Deshaun is not, the end all be all, even though they're paying him all this money, I mean, they do have a lot of depth. And Nick Chubb is hopefully returning after that doozy of a knee injury last year against the Steelers. Sorry about it. So I don't know. It's tough to say, but I'm gonna go with the under.
It's one of those things too. Even though they have depth at the quarterback position, I'm not going to put all my eggs in the basket of Jameis Winston if they don't trade him or Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So yeah, it's depth. I don't know how good that depth is, but anyway, Katie, sorry, I'm cutting into your time. Go ahead.
Hey, that's okay. You guys all know this about me. I don't speak about Deshaun Watson, the football player, so I won't be today. My feelings about Deshaun Watson, the person, have not changed, and those will remain in my indoor voice. They're not for this podcast. Obviously, a lot of this team, like you guys said, hinges on quarterback play, and for 100 different reasons, we don't know what we're going to see there. That's enough. I will be talking about that person. My concerns for this team: injuries on the offensive line, big time. Drew, you said this. When is Nick Chubb going to be healthy? I think they were hoping that he'd be back by now, and obviously it was a really, really serious and scary injury. Deontay Foreman has had a couple injuries too, including a pretty scary one earlier this month. Their defense, though, you said it, Sean, they looked great last year. I don't see a ton of reason why they wouldn't this season. There's just a lot of unknowns here for me. I'm taking the under, and there's a part, like I'm thinking 7-10. It might be higher than that, but I'm also a bit of a Browns hater. So we need to bring my bias into it. But I don't understand what this team is. And yeah, the problematic quarterback situation, just not from, I don't know, but 7-10 is my guess. Tough division, not a great schedule.
Yeah.
7
Nick,
wins.
your turn.
It's low, but I don't necessarily disagree. What was it, Sean? You said 9.5. What they win? They won 11 games last year. Most games, tied for the most games they've won since they came back in 1999. It was a banner year for Browns fans. Weird year because they had 5 different starting quarterbacks. Also, the downside of what the Browns did last year is that they gave everybody else hope with a a quarterback situation that's not ideal. That like if we have a good defense, we could still make the playoffs. The Browns did it with 5 starting quarterbacks last year, and it's like no. That was the outlier. That is not the thing that you rely on when you go into a season. I'm looking at you, Raiders fans specifically.
I love your guy on the internet voice.
Yeah, actually, okay, so yeah, like it hinges on it's deja vu. It hinges on Deshaun Watson. I don't know what the hell he is. Like he had a nice game in Baltimore, and then he fractured his glenoid or whatever the hell it is in your shoulder, and he was done. Some people that have been at camp said he looked bad.
Inside voice, Katie.
From everybody, but some people said he looked bad. And I mean, every NFL team, they depend on their quarterback. If their quarterback's not there, their expectations go down. So I'm not going to place any expectation on him because I just haven't seen any consistency from him. And that's not even mentioning the person that he is. But the rest of this team's still pretty damn good. And you talked about injuries on offensive line, Katie. Well, they got a bit of a stroke of luck this week. All the guys that were hurt are coming off PUP and are expected to be able to play. Jed Wills is going to be the slower one to return, but Jack Conklin back. And the only guy who's still really on PUP they were worried about was Nick Chubb, which is not a surprise. The weird thing about their roster cut down today is that they have 2 running backs on the roster. They have Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, which is exactly where they were when Nick Chubb got hurt last year. I would expect them to find a way to get Deontay Foreman back on this roster. I was looking at their roster moves, and as I was running down them, I see contracts terminated, Deontay Foreman being one of them. That could be a practice squad or somebody that they pick up the next day because he's a vested veteran.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yes, and Nyheim Hines is on NFI. So, like, they have 2 running backs and 4 quarterbacks on this roster. I expect by the time I actually edit this and post it tomorrow that one of those quarterbacks is going to be traded, whether it's DTR or Tyler Huntley. One of them is going to be gone. They're not going to have 4 quarterbacks on this roster. It's just not going to happen. So I think that they'll clear a roster space for a running back at that point. But that's a weakness. Otherwise, again, if the quarterback is average or better, the receiving core is good enough with Amari Cooper and with guys like Elijah Moore, and then of course Jerry Jeudy, who they acquired in the offseason. It's a pretty strong top 3. I think that this offense will be fine, but I'm also worried about Ken Dorsey, an offensive coordinator, because I did not like the way he called plays in Buffalo. I thought they did not lean on the run game well enough. They didn't run the ball traditionally well enough. You've heard me say that ad nauseum, and I'm going to continue to say it until the cows come home. And I think that you're going to see more of an expanded offense, which is going to put more on Deshaun Watson. So I don't know. But that defense was damn good last year. I do not expect them to be number 1 in the league last year because some of those games where they just posted stupid numbers were against some awful quarterbacks. Tennessee, blowout win. Clayton Tune's only start in the NFL came against the Browns. They don't get that luck this year with this schedule because even the Commanders game is going to be against Jaden Daniels. Raiders probably going to be Gardner Minshew. And it's not an easy schedule. Maybe the Giants game in week 3 is like a blowout win because Daniel Jones sucks, but they immediately get thrown in the fire with the Cowboys in week 1. So 9.5, I'm going to go over and say 10, but I don't know if 10's good enough. 10 might be good enough to get you in the wild card conversation, but it's not going to be good enough to win this division. I just can't imagine them winning any more games than that just because I don't trust the quarterback and I don't trust the offensive coordinator quite as much. Not that I was a big fan of Alex Van Pelt, but I know Kevin Stefanski's calling plays, but if he's got somebody else in his ear that's encouraging in one way or the other, I worry about that. So I don't have a lot of trust in them. Call me a pessimist because I live in Cleveland and I'm a Midwestern guy and I always expect the worst and hope for the best, but 10 is about their ceiling in my opinion. So we'll go over, but only slightly.
If you say 10 is their ceiling.
I was just going to say, it's such a fair point with the wins, as far as like winning 10 games. I mean, that's going to be good enough for the NFC East, but it's not going to be good enough for the AFC North. So that's a very fair point.
9 wins and 8 wins won the NFC South the last 2 years. Sean.
Hey, don't take shots at Tampa Bay. All right. As I sit down here in the 90-degree heat.
The Spotify logo here.
Right. You say 10 wins is the ceiling. I don't think the Browns are going to hit their ceiling this year. This is a really difficult schedule. Yes, they have a good defense. Yes, they have the false defensive player of the year in Myles Garrett. Nick Chubb, I think, coming back week 4? What? What'd I say?
Hang on, I'm going to go down in the kitchen real quick and grab my salt shaker because, geez, you are just a big old lump of it tonight.
Why don't you grab that helmet behind you and physically assault someone with it, Nick?
Ooh, that was a good one. That was a really good comeback.
Thank you.
Why don't you try to rip the helmet off of that guy when he's on top of you on the ground and potentially, allegedly say a naughty word?
Drew, a backstory on this. A couple months after that whole incident went down, I was at a Cavs game with Nick, and they showed Myles Garrett on the Jumbotron and had everyone cheering. Somebody. And then he was courtside. They showed him on the Jumbotron, everyone was cheering, and then they showed a Steelers logo, and everyone started booing, and then they showed Myles Garrett, everyone starts cheering, and I just said really loudly, "Isn't that guy be in jail for assaulting someone?" And everyone just shot me a look.
I was in the press box at that game. You should have heard Steelers media. Like, first, everyone in the press box was like, "Oh my god," and then they're like, "That's assault. They should go arrest him right now. That's assault." I'm just like,
Okay,
God,
I know
relax.
exactly who those.
Wild.
I probably know exactly who those media members were. No one takes them seriously. I promise you.
Yeah, but look, man, I don't know what it is. I'm just gonna say this now, and it's not in defense of Browns fans, but it's just an observation I've made over the 14 years I've known you, and the many years that I was forced to spend watching the Steelers destroy Colt McCoy and Muhammad Massaquoi, especially on Thursday Night Football at Rockneys in Kent. Thanks, Sean, with all your Pittsburgh Steeler friends.
Yep.
Y'all, for being the superior franchise to the Browns over the last 25 years, y'all are so sensitive about them. As soon as they do anything to threaten you, it's like, oh, we got to attack the Browns in every way possible. I'm like, guys, it's still the Browns. Like, if the Browns is the Browns, then actually act like it.
Hey, man, nameless gray faces. I'm just calling it like it is. When TJ Watt has statistically a better season, how the hell is he not the defensive player of the year?
He's already got
but
one.
he actually wasn't as double teamed as much. And no. You watch the film. TJ Watt was the defensive player of the year. Anyway, I digest. Moving on. I'm taking the under because this was a difficult season. Living with a Browns fan, I can tell you that last year was so weird as an outside fan to watch because I have my love going, hey, did you see the Browns won again? Joe Flacco is doing amazing. I'm like, this should not be possible. You should not lose Nick Chubb, lose your starting quarterback, lose your backup quarterback, bring a guy who probably should be retired off the couch.
And this is the vulnerability I speak of.
5 wins in a row and you're in the playoffs. Like,
this
how
is
is
what
that
I'm talking
possible?
about, Sean. Like, what? You never went through this when you had Charlie Batch out there? When Chris Froome
on the Batch.
Let them have their weird fun.
It was weird, but I don't think that weird is going to happen again. Weird got them to the playoffs last year, and it was a cool story. I mean, I got to say, like, Joe Flacco did deserve comeback player of the year. It was great. It was really cool. It was a fun ride to watch, even as a Steelers fan. However much it irked me, it was still cool to watch all that. But at the same time, lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, so I'm going to take the under.
That's fair. That's completely fair and justified. I just want you to admit that you have a weird vulnerability for the Browns that I'll never understand.
When you have someone under your boot, you cannot allow them to get up, Nick.
So finish them.
No, we just like to watch you squirm.
I really enjoy watching the hope of Browns fans, just like you have this hope every year that you're actually going to do something and then you don't do it. I'm like, why don't you guys jump ship? Really, it's just kind of funny from my vantage point.
Interesting. I understand that. That exists in a lot of NFL franchises.
Exactly.
Man, it's not my fault. It's not Tampa Bay's fault that you didn't treat Baker right, because we're treating him right down here. He's got the good life now, man.
I think he would admit that he was in a place, and the Browns were in a place where they needed to go their separate ways.
100%.
The guy was
absolutely,
hurt.
100%.
I could tell you he showed up his second year out of shape. I saw it firsthand. He was a real chunky
100%.
guy that year.
Oh man, he is really slimmed down now. Honestly,
yeah, he looks great.
He's
that Florida sunshine, baby.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Turn into a Florida man suddenly. Hey, it's that vitamin
Florida
C.
Man.
I guess so. Are we going to wait to do the Steelers last, or are we going to do them next? Because
no, the Bengals finished last place. The Steelers made the playoffs. Steelers are
I
next.
know, but Katie said let's do the Steelers last, but I don't know who's running this pod anymore.
Sorry. I relent. I
just thought it'd be fun to save it for you two Steelers fans, but hey, I'm just along for the ride today.
Yeah, throw up the Bengals, Nick.
Yeah, we're breaking format. I am secondary to the super producer herself, and I will always be.
Sean, I'm a little concerned for your mental health being with a Browns fan. How is that?
No, we don't need to do that.
It's okay because she's not like that into it. She only like really watches when they're winning, which last year, and then I will say that that playoff game during the COVID year, that was tough. That was tough. I almost had to sleep on the couch that night. That was difficult.
Speaking of which, Sean, when was your last playoff win?
I don't know.
Do that.
Come on.
When was your last playoff win?
When was your last playoff win in front of fans?
There were some fans there.
Okay.
Not in Pittsburgh.
There were some fans there.
You know who also was in attendance and was crying at the end of the night? Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Pouncey. But I digress.
Yeah.
On to the Bengals.
Stab to the heart. Okay. Moving right along.
On to the Bengals. On to Cincinnati. led by Slim Shady. Week 1, Bengals kicking things off at home against the Pats. Then week 2 on the road against the Chiefs. Yikes. Week 3, taking on the Commies at home. Week 4, they got the Panthers on the road. Week 5, back at home against the Ravens. Can I just say I hate when teams do this, like road home thing. Week 6 and 7, they've got a road swing against the Giants and Browns. Week 8 and 9 at home against the Eagles, then Raiders. Then back on the road for 2 weeks against the Ravens and Chargers. Again, who made this schedule? Their bye week is week 12, 13 on the road, at home against the Steelers. Then back on the road for another 2 games against the Cowboys and Titans. Home for 2 against the Browns and Broncos. And then finally wrapping things up against the Steelers, week 18 at the place formerly known as Heinz Field. It's still Heinz to me. Damn it.
Sure.
I mean, this team was like, I guess the best way to describe them last year was spunky. Even though they lost Joe Burrow early on in the season, like they still were never, they weren't an easy out still. Now that with Joe Burrow being back, I mean, they don't have Joe Mixon anymore. I know, but I tell you what, I still like this team. I like what they did on the offensive line. This to me kind of sounds like a team that's going to be there at the end of the season. I'm not going to go too high though. So I will go over under 10.5 for the Bengals.
I think it's perfect.
Drew?
Looking at their schedule at a glance like this versus the Ravens and Browns schedule, it just feels a little easier to me.
A little bit, yeah, as I was reading it off, yeah.
It just feels a little easier. And I'm going off feelings and vibes here today, but I'm gonna maybe go with the over. I feel like when Ben Roethlisberger was with the Steelers, you kind of always had this sentiment that, like, the Steelers always have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. They always have an opportunity to make the playoffs. And I feel that way about Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And I'm not supposed to love him, but I do anyway. So that's my thoughts. I'm going to go over.
Well, he said it, that their Super Bowl window is as long as his career lasts. So, which I do love that energy from him.
Yeah, I like that. There's a lot of BDE there.
What does that stand for? Just kidding. I have the over too. I like this team. I just really hope, like everyone, that Joe Burrow can stay healthy. Like this team, like they were spunky last year. I like that choice of word. But this team is just so much more fun to watch when he's playing. And we don't know realistically how long we'll see this window with him having both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yeah.
I think the defense will be better this year. It still looks pretty middle of the pack to me. Like, it doesn't look like a super standout defense. But overall, honestly, I really like this roster. I trust Zach Taylor. I hope that we see a full season of Joe Burrow. And I don't think their schedule is super tough. I have them at 11-6. Obviously, injuries can change things, but I'm becoming a bigger fan of the Bengals throughout the years. I can feel that happening in myself. Just a big Joe Burrow guy, And
it's hard not to be a Joe Burrow guy. I mean, he commands a room. He's a baller on the field. He dyes his hair and doesn't care when people make fun of him. He loves Kid Cudi. He loves LeBron. He's like a secret Cleveland fan because he grew up in Athens, and at least when it comes to the Cavs. Look, this is kind of like the Browns. It depends on the quarterback. It's just the question isn't, can he play? We know he can play. It's just, can he stay on the field? If he's healthy, this is a team that's going to contend for the division title. They're going to be right there with the Ravens. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're just built too well to not be. Like, this is a developed, matured Bengals team. It's also a Bengals team to me, at least on the offensive side of the ball, feels like a last dance situation with T. Higgins. And also, like, they just let Joe Mixon go because of money. And they were like, yeah, we're just going to replace 1,400 scrimmage yards in the aggregate with Zach Moss and like Chase Brown and like a number of other guys. They already lost, one of the running backs to injury too. So like, I'm concerned about their balance offensively. I think that they're going to rely a little bit too much on Joe, which means they're going to have to protect him. And Amarius Mims, the right tackle, already got hurt in the preseason. He was going to be starting. So concerned there. But overall, it's still hard to argue with this group. With that window with T. Higgins, how long is this going to be together? I think this is the last year. I think he's going to end up somewhere else. So they better go do it now. Jamar Chase luckily came back to practice. Seems like they're going to figure everything out after it was kind of a holdout for a while. And Andre Yoshivas, the kid from Princeton, has been balling this year and is going to be playing a part. He was one of my favorite combine guys a couple years ago. Happy to see him developing with Cincinnati, and also keep an eye on the Alabama product, Jermaine Burton, as well. They got options. They got weapons. And on the defensive side of the ball, Dax Hill has been converted to cornerback and won the job. And that was a stud player who played safety at Michigan, kind of a star player, bit of a box safety at times. And he beat out his former Michigan teammate, DJ Turner, for that job. So they got a ton of talent in the back end of that secondary. Cam Taylor-Britt, another one of my combine favorites from a few years ago, has risen to the other cornerback job. And they're loaded on that side of the ball, and they are deeper than I think they were in past years. So it's over. It's over for me. I think that they're going to be right there with the Ravens. It's going to be a war in the AFC North, as it always is. But I do think that it's going to be Ravens, Bengals 1 and 2, and then the Browns and the Steelers like trying to figure out who the hell they are at 3 and 4. And you can just mix and match them. But I think at least 2 teams getting this in the playoffs in this division. And right now, if I had to pick, it's Baltimore and it's Cincinnati.
Game over, man. Game over. I'm going with the over as well. If Joe Burrow stays healthy. If he doesn't stay healthy and gets labeled an injury-prone quarterback, then they're going to finish the under. I mean, seriously, that's my official. If Joe Burrow stays healthy, over. If he's not healthy, under. And I feel like
I agree.
Earned the right to say that because he has had 2 season-ending injuries in his first 4 seasons in the NFL. So, the biggest question mark, besides the depth, I guess, in the offensive backfield, is it's health with Joe Burrow. Can they keep him healthy? Will he stay healthy? But Nick, to your point about, relying on him more, hey, F it, Jamar's down there somewhere, right? I think it's big that they kept T. Higgins, at least for this year. It might be the last dance, but this is a team that could contend for a Super Bowl title. So we'll see how that goes. That's my answer, though. If Joe Burrow stays healthy, over. If not, under. I agree with you, though. This is a team that will contend for the division. You can mix and match them or the Ravens for 1 and 2, and then mix and match the Browns and Steelers for 3 and 4. Who knows? But this division always has kind of the odd talent of surprising me, even when I've been watching it since I was a little kid. All right, there's the Bengals. Let's go on to everyone's favorite 6-time Super Bowl champs, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
By the way, before you go into this anymore, I just have to ask the 2 resident Steeler fans in here. At what point do you get disappointed enough by a failed Super Bowl run that you retire the phrase "stairway to 7"? Because I've been hearing it a lot over the last 15 years, and it's pretty played out.
It's still my Wi-Fi password, so I don't know.
There's the answer. Well, don't hack into Drew's Wi-Fi, anybody who's listening.
Nick, I don't know if you've ever listened to the Steelers pump-up song every playoff run that they rewrite every year.
The song's awful.
Yeah, I know. It's a bop. All right, relax. It's a bop.
It has not aged well.
1979.
Browns fans aren't intelligent enough to come up with something like that.
Exactly.
It's the most basic song in the history of music.
Pittsburgh's going out of Super Bowl.
God.
Here
we go. Nick, from 1979, when they won their 4th Super Bowl title, until 2006, every single year, gonna get the one for the thumb. Okay, so to answer your question, that was what, a 27-year wait in between titles? So we still got at least another 12 years to go before we retire Stairway to 7.
What Pittsburgh and Cleveland have in common is they're both backed by fan bases with small minds and a lack of creativity. I would actually side with Cleveland. I think Cleveland has a little more culture on that side than Pittsburgh, in my experience. But just come up with something new, please.
I mean, when you guys win a Super Bowl, you can go ahead and write a song, and then we'll see.
Oh, that'll never happen, so don't worry about that.
There you go. Okay.
Nick, do you still have your Mavaliers shirt? Or your OK Clee hashtag?
I never bought any of that merch,
didn't
John.
your city just root for other teams and infuse their logo and colors into other team sports because your teams suck?
Sean, here's the thing.
I have all the receipts, man. You got none.
The city of Cleveland was baptized and born again when LeBron James came back and won a championship in 2016. That's old news. That's water under the bridge. We don't need to bring up a cross-sport comparison there.
People don't forget, Nick. People don't forget.
Keep making.
All right.
By the way. It was like 8 years ago.
The Pittsburgh Steelers schedule, starting off week 1 on the road against the Falcons, week 2 on the road against the Broncos, week 3, their home opener against the Chargers, week 4 back on the road against the Colts, week 5 at home against everyone's favorite team, the Cowboys, week 6 on the road against the Raiders. It feels like they've played in Vegas a lot lately. Week 7 and 8 at home against the Jets and Giants. Are they sharing a hotel for the week?
New York
week
double
9,
feature, baby.
the bye. And then week 10 on the road against the Commies. Week 11 at home against the Ravens. Here's where things just gets so fun. And where I think whoever made this schedule was just blackout drunk. Week 11 at home against the Ravens. Then you've got road games against the Browns, Bengals, back at home against the Browns. Then the Eagles week 15, Ravens week 16. I can't read this with a straight face. Chiefs.
It's insane.
On Christmas Day, week 17, and then week 18 wrapping things up against the Bengals. Who? Why? Who made this schedule? And what did we do to hurt you as a fan base? What did this team do?
Who hurt you?
Let me tell you. You can thank
Good
Netflix.
Lord.
You can thank Netflix for this, because for a period there, we were not supposed to have games on Christmas Day this year. We were told there was not going to be games on Christmas Day, which is a Wednesday. For those of you who are not attuned and don't look that far ahead into your schedule, unlike my family who's already trying to plan their Christmas get-together, Christmas is on a Wednesday. And because the NFL got money from Netflix to stream these games, they were like, you know what? Turns out we are doing games on Christmas, which, sweet, there goes my day. But also, there goes the Steelers' schedule in the last 3 weeks. Sean, how many days? Would you like to regale our listeners with how many days are in between their last 3 games? Because it's freaking awful.
I
guess
no
the
idea.
dates would be good to show on there.
Yeah, the dates would be good to show. I don't know the
Here we go.
actual
I got
dates,
them.
Nick. Yeah, if you have the
Week
dates,
15.
please.
Week 15 is Sunday, December 15th. Week 16 is Saturday, December 21st. Short week. Week 17, Wednesday, December 25th. That's 4 days between games at Baltimore and at home against Kansas City. And then, by the grace of God, you get a little bit of a break going into week 18, which is on January 5th.
I
on
can
a
do
Sunday.
math. I can do math.
Yeah.
It's 11 days. 11 days. 3 games, 11 days.
That's
Yes.
wild. And it's not like you're playing the Patriots and the Giants and the,
No.
Hey,
and the
but guys,
Panthers.
I just want to reiterate that the NFL does care about player safety.
They
Unless
sure
it cares about money
do.
more than it
No.
does.
Yeah. Just not as
Joke.
much as anything else.
Not to knock your employer, Nick, but I mean, come on.
I didn't say
Come
anything.
on. Yeah, exactly. All right. So with this line, I'm not even going to worry about playing the schedule game because the talking point all year long is going to be, will Mike Tomlin finally have his first losing season or not? So I'm going to set the line at 8.5. Do they have a winning season or do they have a losing season?
Drew, do the honors.
Well, that is an immediate over for me, Sean. I was going for the Jeopardy, like Alex Trebek. That'll be 100 for me, Alex. And I don't know. See, it's funny because while this is arguably the hardest schedule in the NFL, especially with the last half of the season, last 4 game stretch. It's arguably the hardest schedule. But I feel like the Steelers can still, I don't know, the QB situation is still very much up in the air. I know a lot of Steelers fans like Russell Wilson, and they think it's a step up from Kenny Pickett. I think that remains to be seen, especially with how badly he played in Denver last year. Justin Fields has something to prove. So if for some reason Russell Wilson's not the guy and they want to hand it off to Justin Fields, he's got something to prove. I'll let you know, guys, just so you are aware, I was very much a Kenny Pickett diehard. So I am just so trepidatious about this quarterback situation. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. At the same time, I did listen to Russell Wilson on Cam Hayward's podcast yesterday, and I was like, okay, he is kind of a guy you want to root for at the same time. So very much feeling the over. I feel like the Steelers have arguably the best defense on paper in the AFC. So at least they got that going for them. Offense is still, as my friend Gabby DePaul likes to say, very shaky. Offensive line is very shaky. We don't really have an identity in the receiver core yet. So it's tough to say. I feel like the last 4 game stretch, honestly, they're probably going to lose to the Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs and somehow eke into the playoffs with a win over the Bengals. That's just kind of what I'm thinking the year will be.
If I may, as the co-resident Steelers fan here and follow up after Drew, I agree with everything she said. I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know when, but they're somehow going to do exactly what you just said. They'll get to like 10 wins, maybe by the grace of God, 11 somehow. Like, I don't know. I can't explain this Katie, no, I get it. Trust me, I get it. But 2 years ago when they were 2-6, it's like, oh, surely they're going to have a losing season now. And then somehow they win 5 of their last 7. Or same thing. They make it to the playoffs with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky all at some point starting a game. Like, I don't understand how they do this. I don't understand how Mike Tomlin works his voodoo magic. I don't get it. But I'm done asking because I have just seen it enough to know that it's probably just going to happen. Like, it sucks if you're, say, a Browns fan and you're like, how do they keep getting away with this? Believe me, we don't know either. We're also not going to complain too much either.
Well,
So I'm going to take the over.
I can tell you how they got there last year is because they realized Mason Rudolph was the best option on the roster, which is not a high ceiling, but was better than anything Mitch Trubisky was bringing to the table and Kenny Pickett.
That is true. I did, and you said Russell Wilson played poorly last year. I mean, to an extent, yes, but he wasn't worse than Kenny Pickett. He had 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, I think it was.
He had a good little in between stretch, like middle of the season, and then it started to tail off pretty bad. So much that they were like, you know what, this is not worth risking the injury settlement, like the guaranteed money. Sit on the bench. We're done with you.
So
the other thing too is about Kenny Pickett, but I won't.
I added, I think all 3 Steelers quarterbacks combined had a total of 13 touchdown passes last year. So I added 13 touchdowns to the Steelers schedule. And you know what happened? They won more games. So if we can at least get that kind of production, I mean, there's a couple more wins. I'm not going to say like, oh, they're going to be much improved and they're going to win 12, 13 games, contend for the division title, because let's face it, it's just not going to happen. But I still think they'll be there at the end contending for a playoff spot.
I couldn't decide if it was going to be Mike Tomlin's first losing season or not. So I totally bitched out, and my record prediction is 8-1.
Yeah.
Loophole, because before, when it was a 16-game season, all I would do whenever I didn't know if a team was going to be above or below 500, 8-8, baby, 8-8. And now I have found my crown jewel, the 8-1 record. I don't know who the tie's going to be.
That is a cop-out, but I respect it, Katie, because because you just proved what I just said. We don't know how this happens, but somehow it happens.
Somehow. The back half of the season is wild, but then you look at the beginning and 3 of the first 4 games are on the road. Like, they got nailed with the schedule. The quarterbacks, I don't think either of them are the answer. Drew, I'm with you. I'd probably lean Justin Fields. Their offense doesn't inspire me a ton. I love George Pickens, but their receiver room just isn't stacked. I hope Roman Wilson is able to return soon. I checked, I think, yesterday, and he was still not practicing? ?
Yeah, he's probably going to miss first week.
But they're dealing with injuries. Dylan Cook was just put on IR. I do think Arthur Smith might bring a bit more creativity than Matt Canada, is the nicest way I know how to say that, because I feel like
the same way like a 4th grade art student brings more creativity than a kindergarten art student.
That's like I said, that was the nicest way that I know how to say it, because we've all had our different turns kind of railing into Matt Canada on this podcast.
I'm so happy I don't have to say that man's name again on this podcast.
I'm so happy that I could bring his name back into your ears today, Sean. I know you've really been missing talking about him, but their defense, Drew, you hit on this. They're loaded. They look like arguably one of the best on paper. They get Minkah Fitzpatrick back. They still have TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. Like, I love their defense. And Mike Tomlin is a guy that he gets players on his team to overachieve. We've seen that again and again, where especially at the end of the season, it's like, nah, just kidding. We did get there. That's why I'm such a big fan of Mike Tomlin. Everybody here knows that. But yeah, I'm going with the bitch out. 8-1, 500, baby. Not over, not below.
Which game is the tie?
I was going to say.
Ooh. It's going to be something insane.
It's going to be the Browns.
It's going to be like the Raiders.
I felt Raiders too.
You know, actually, I changed my answer. Week 4 at Colts gives very tie. The Colts just
big tie vibes.
Big tie energy. Yeah.
That one. Good week 4.
Anthony Richardson.
There have been some Richardson
on
thoughts on this podcast and in our group text as soon as today.
Nick, you're a little quiet up there, buddy.
No, I'm letting you guys talk it out.
Okay.
Guys, I wanted to thank, Omar Khan, we've talked about this, did a great job this offseason. And patience, I have learned, remains a virtue when it comes to watching football players contribute, because this is not Madden. You can't just plug and play and expect them to be good right away. But man, watching them in the preseason was a little rough. I know it's the preseason, but I mean, they did some offensive line shuffling. Russell Wilson had no time to throw against Buffalo. Justin Fields has not
Against
made
the Bills was wild.
has not made any significant improvements to increase in fact, I've taken a step back in my thoughts on him. I actually texted Carmen during the Bills game, and I just said, "You're right. Fields stinks." Like it's just, I don't know, man. I think Chicago broke him. I thought that he could be saved, and I think Chicago broke him because he sits in the pocket still too long. He pulls his eyes down too quickly. He does not trust the progressions. He still doesn't trust his offensive line. It's like it's ingrained in his head that he's about to get sacked. And then even on plays as simple as a read option on 4th down, he makes the wrong read. A read option is one of the simpler reads you can make. You just take the snap, go to hand it off, and you look at the defensive end. And if he crashes, you pull it. And if he stays home, you hand it off. And he stayed home, and Justin pulled it and ran into a wall of defenders. And I'm just like, oh no, like bad decision, small sample size, but God, that's a play that he needs to make, and he did not make it. He's not any better than Russell Wilson, and I'm pretty sure Russell Wilson's pretty washed. Mike Tomlin is the wild card here because he's been such a good coach. Also, the whole consternation about him going into a lame duck season, glad that was proven to be a waste of time with that extension. Thank you, Steelers, for being the stable organization you are and handling that. Defensively, yes, this team is talented. Nick Herbig had a hell of a preseason. And again, it's preseason, but keep an eye on him. I love the addition of Peyton Wilson. Joey Porter Jr. needs to take a couple steps forward. I actually talked to a Steelers assistant in Indianapolis during the combine, and I was like, look, you got to admit Joey's grabby as hell. He's like, he is grabby.
Yeah, he is.
He's talented, but he is grabby as hell, and he's got to work on that. And I think that's his biggest hang up right now. But if he can get past that, he can be one of the better young corners in the NFL. You have TJ Watt. Love the addition of Patrick Queen. I love the defensive front really is too deep. The linebackers are too deep. And your defensive secondary, for the most part, is pretty solid. So I think that's going to be their strength again. And that's a Mike Tomlin team. And you're right. Mike Tomlin finds a way to do it every year, no matter how many things have gone wrong. Having said that, what was the line, Sean?
8.5.
I'm going to go under.
They're going to have a winning
season. I'm going to go 8 and 9. I'm going 8 and 9. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's going to be one of those games where they're just going to get blasted by that back half of the schedule. They're going to come out kind of hot. They might lose to the Falcons week 1, but then you get Broncos, Chargers, Colts. They can win all 3 of those games. Cowboys will be a test. They can win the Raiders game. They can win the Giants game. They can come out of there above 500 going into the bye. They can beat the Commanders on the road. I think they will. And then that gauntlet, I don't see them winning any of those games unless they split those division games, like 4 division games in a row. You get a break, and then you get 2 more division games in your final 3. Oh, and you play the Chiefs. Like, what? Just an absolute bloodbath of a schedule. And I think that's where it falls apart.
My saving
I love
grace
how all
is
the division games are right there.
Yeah, right there. My saving grace right now is that the Eagles are just going to implode again down the stretch, and we kind of catch them sleeping there. Then,
Sean, they're not.
Not the zoom in.
I pressed the wrong button. My camera started
auto tracking. This is why it pays
me.
to watch the stream.
Sean, they're not. Actually, no. Let's do this one better. They're not, Sean. Okay. All right, that's enough camera tricks for one day.
I don't know. I think they beat the Ravens at home, in my humble opinion. I'm just saying. But
no, now that I pulled the schedule down, I'm not looking at it again.
Yeah, I'm like, let's memorize where it was.
No, I mean, yeah. Okay, so that's cool. That's week 11. And then what about at Browns, at Bengals, Browns at home, at Eagles, at Ravens?
Browns they could beat.
Like, they're losing most of those games. I'm just sorry.
Nick, we don't care about how. We don't care about how. We just care about how many. I don't know how, man. I don't know, but Mike Tomlin has somehow figured out the magical key.
They don't want a high draft pick. I really think at the end of the day, they want to be drafting at 16, 17 every year.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Offensive linemen and cornerbacks. That's where we live, right there.
Yeah, so I'm not being a hater. I'm just trying to speak to you from
no, and I totally get that. I mean, this season could be a disaster, or it could be great. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you have a scapegoat already, though, because of the quarterback situation. You can just blame it on that if it all falls apart.
Yeah, no, we have a built-in excuse.
Have a lot of good bones.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like when you go to an old house and you're like, she's still got great bones, though. You know, that's the Steelers. Yeah. Hey, she needs a little TLC, but she's got great bones.
Great bones.
If you want my Kenny Pickett perspective, you guys just let me know. I will give you a whole.
I do.
The whole thing.
I do.
It is a little sweet that he's like losing the backup quarterback job in Philadelphia right now.
Yeah,
talk about somebody getting broken in a place. You say Justin Fields got broken in Chicago. The Steelers did not do Kenny Pickett any favors as far as his development is concerned. Should have fired Matt Canada after his rookie season. right? Actually brought somebody in that knew what they were doing. I mean, literally same exact situation as Justin Fields, as far as like not being able to trust your offensive line, not having any creativity. We're just run, pass, and then he gets injured. It's just, and then you say the whole time you're bringing somebody in to compete with him, and as soon as you sign Russell Wilson, you literally hand him the starting job because he said he wasn't going to sign with you unless you tell him he's the starter. I mean, I don't know. They didn't do anything for his development in the slightest. Then you add in that factor at the end. It's like, well, I don't want to be here either. Thanks. Okay, I feel a lot better.
Good. I hope you sleep really well tonight because of that.
I have a Kenny Pickett jersey hanging up in my closet.
So you're financially involved here.
I am.
Well,
I know. I kept it in my shopping cart. He didn't do enough for me to click buy, even though I get a 40% discount.
I have a Charlie Fry jersey buried deep in the closet, so.
Nice. All right, that's the AFC North. I don't know what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, but man, it's going to be cool.
We're also going to get an up-close and personal look at it, thanks to NFL Films and HBO Sports. In-season Hard Knocks with the AFC North.
Oh, that's right, yeah. That should be...
Company guy, right here. Company guy.
Yeah. Drew, thanks so much for hopping on the Gridiron podcast here and talking AFC North football with us. You want to get a terrible towel twirl before we get out of here? I feel like we owe the fans that. Let's do one. All right.
Oh, as I drop stuff, thanks. Yeah, that's how I do my life.
Nick, you want to twirl your terrible towel? Let's go. All right, there we go.
There we go.
It's such a bad song.
I'm happy on my firstborn child in the hospital. Thanks. Whenever that happens.
Good.
I think they give them for free in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
They do. If I were in Pittsburgh, but got to do it myself here in California.
I gotcha. Anyone got anything else for Drew?
Oh, Drew, what an absolute gift having you here. We FaceTimed this morning and we've talked about this, that we've never actually talked about football together, and we've worked with so many athletes together. But we covered the Super Bowl together on Radio Row, but the magic of Galvanize is it's talking about who you are, not what you do. And we've never actually talked ball together. So that's been fun. We've worked together a lot, but we've never actually talked about the sport we cover. So how lovely to do that with you today.
Yeah, this was so nice. I'm so humbled to join the crew for the day. I've listened to some of y'all's other podcasts, and it's so professional. First of all, it sounds great, and a lot of good stuff you guys are putting out. It's also really fun, so I really appreciate you bringing me aboard for the afternoon or the evening.
Oh, thank you so much, Drew. You are welcome back anytime. Not because you say nice things about us, but because I also need a Pittsburgh voice on this podcast from time to time.
Lord knows it's not going to be us.
That's why. I just thought.
I know exactly. It's like Katie, Nick, it's not going to be us. I know. That's why, guys. Sometimes I just need some support. Drew, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Drew.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
You too. Bye, friend. Okay. Well, you set up. Go on.
I was going to say follow her at the Drew Jones on social media. What were you saying, Katie?
I have to run downstairs and get my vibes notes because I forgot them.
Okay. Oh. Because Nick, what are we doing?
Shifting gears.
There we go. We're shifting gears.
Formula One.
As we said at the beginning of this podcast, the Gridiron Podcast talks about Formula One and football. So we started off with football because we wanted Drew to come on the show. Now we're going to hop into Formula One. It wasn't a great race this week, but Formula One is back after a 4-week hiatus for the summer break. It was back in the house that Max Verstappen rebuilt in Zandvoort by the Sea, which I learned is Dutch for sand fort. Hi, Katie.
John, my OCD is making me reorganize this. Sorry, 1 second.
It's weird. Thank you. Yeah, Katie cannot be the bottom square. No, I'm gonna be the bottom square.
No. As someone with properly diagnosed OCD, I respect and understand that you just did that.
Yes,
Thank you.
It's just weird.
How
are people going to know who's
insane. Who? I know. I mean, it's not like we have names or anything there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's also not like you're a 6'3" bald male.
You can't tell in a rectangle like this. I'm sitting down.
I'm 6'1".
Katie, you are all of 4'11".
5'3.5". Sometimes I round up and I say I'm 5'4". Okay.
Yeah, on a tall day. You should see our size comparison.
Day, huh?
Nick and I had been friends for so many years, and when we met at the Super Bowl, I think the first thing I said to him was, "You're really tall," and I knew
exactly
he was.
What you said. Yeah, what happened was we saw each other and we sprinted toward each other like in like a movie and gave each other a hug, and then she stopped and just goes, "Wow, you're really tall." I go,
Story
"What did you
gets better every
expect?"
time you tell it.
And then everyone I was with, we chatted for a bit, and then you walked away, and then they were like, "Who's that?" I promise I know that guy. We host a podcast together, but it was the big dramatic, like slow-mo, like Nick.
Yeah. Like the only thing we were missing was like a downpour of rain.
Yeah, inside Allegiant Stadium.
Yes, in the dome. Yes.
All right, guys. Well, at this point, we're sitting at an hour, so let's get through F1 here. The Dutch Grand Prix, the race that brought us back from the summer break, and boy, what a race it was. Some intrigue, but also I don't think it was like no one's talking about how good the race was. Everyone's talking about the shift that this race might or might not signify. So, you had Lando Norris from McLaren starting on pole, and what does Lando Norris do at the start of the race?
He blew it going into turn one.
He fumbles it. Not only did he not lead after lap one, he didn't lead after turn one. Didn't make it to turn one in the lead. We'll get into that in a second. But 17 laps later, he sails past Max Verstappen at his home race and just builds a lead. Wins by 22.8 seconds, the largest margin of victory by someone not named Max Verstappen since 2021. Behind him, of course, Max Verstappen, and then kind of a miracle podium, P3 for Charles Leclerc. And then coming home P4 was Oscar. I'm curious about your thoughts on this race, because there's a bunch of different ways you could dissect this. This is, have McLaren and Lando finally figured it out? Are they the team to beat now every week going forward? Or is it, wow, this was just a really good week for Orlando and a really bad week for Max, because, you know, you look at Oscar and he couldn't get past Charles in that Ferrari for P3 when he should have caught him. So what is this? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay,
Nick, you go ahead.
Oh, all right, cool. That McLaren's car is a freaking rocket.
Yes.
It is a rocket
That's
ship.
what it is. That's my takeaway. Like the way, because like obviously Lando had a terrible start per usual. Max gets around.
Now hold on. I'll save my thoughts. Go ahead.
From P1, Sean. He's terrible from P1. In fact, you should root against him winning pole because he blows it every time.
His starts were
bad. That's neither here nor there, though, because he won the race. The way that Max built a lead and then it was erased. Max made one mistake in the middle sector on one lap, and that his entire lead was gone. And Lando didn't just like get around him. He flew by him and then just pulled away. And at one point, Max gets on the radio and he's talking about how like the car is not responding to my inputs. I can't go any faster, almost as like a desperate plea for help. Like, the car's not as good anymore. I don't know what to do. And I was like, oh God, they realize that they're screwed, that they don't have the best car. And it's pretty obvious now. I don't care what Oscar did. He's young. We know he'll struggle from time to time. And Charles also had a fantastic race. So good on Charles for getting on the podium.
The Ferraris looked good.
They did. And like, but what I learned more than anything from this race is that holy hell, McLaren's car is fast as hell, and everybody else better watch out.
Katie,
that was my big takeaway too. I was kind of waiting for you guys to be like, oh, do you still think he was the biggest letdown? Like, keep doing it then.
Yeah.
That like when you can't start properly. It is, I said it last episode, it's officially a pattern that he cannot keep the lead.
Well, okay, so to be fair, like, yes, in those past races where he has had pole and he has fumbled the lead, absolutely. This, I don't know if it was that case, and that this isn't me as a McLaren fan saying, it wasn't as bad as I thought. It really wasn't, because he actually, when you dissect it, the reaction time from both Lando and Max was 0.28 seconds. They gave the lead to Lando because I think they measured to like the third or fourth decimal point, whatever. So he actually had the quicker reaction time than Max. But both Lando and Oscar lost a place at the beginning. Something about their tires not being up to temperature. Maybe they didn't drop the clutch in time or something. Maybe it was driver error, or maybe it was partly the car's problem as well.
No, that's the thing. That's what they said. They said process-wise, Lando did everything right. He didn't like hit too high on the RPMs. Everything was right. It's just that like they didn't get the traction out that they needed.
Yeah, so I don't want to put that. But
if that's the weakness, that's not a big deal. That's not if that's your biggest weakness as a car. That's not a big deal.
I don't want to that, but that's what I'm saying. I don't want to like pin that. Oh, he's still terrible at the starts because like it wasn't.
Yeah,
really
but
that bad of a
in
start,
Katie's
but, like,
defense, there's a lot of examples of Lando struggling at the start.
There are. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not saying he's great at starts. I'm just saying in this particular example, I don't think we can point to him and go, "You're terrible at starts," because like Yeah, but like this wasn't the same case. Like this was something different. This was mechanical error. Anyway, I digress. The fun part for me is, after getting downstairs, turning on the race, pouring a cup of coffee, race starts. He's in second place by turn one. I throw up my hands. I'm like, are you kidding me? But then I'm
Coffee goes
waiting for
flying
Max.
everywhere.
Yeah, really. I'm waiting for Max to kind of
Aaron's
build
like,
that
"No."
lead that he normally does. And he just wasn't doing it. Lando was just a second and a half behind him. And I'm thinking, okay, are you going to catch him? Because the lead isn't growing. It was between that 1.3 to 1.6 second range. And then I started to think, he's waiting. He's not racing him right now. He's waiting. And then sure enough, Max's tires start to fall a little bit. And then Lando just soared past him. What I do want to point out, though, is I have seen videos online that, pretty much play the Jaws theme song when Lando's behind you. But I have seen videos online of the halo cam from Max's car, and you see his front wheels turn, and the car just does not turn. I don't know if that was a setup that they had for Zandvoort or what, but something was up with that RB this weekend. So I don't know if that's going to be just race specific, and we're going to see Max, sail past Lando this week in Monza. I don't know, but I will say it was fun to watch as a McLaren fan, because this is the moment I've been waiting for years now, just a comfortable win where I'm like, oh, simply lovely, huh?
Love that.
Oh, that's so
The little
dirty out of
dig
you.
from Lando at Max's home race using his catchphrase, simply lovely, huh?
That was simply lovely. And you guys know how much I love a simply lovely from Max. I've brought it up on the podcast only about 45 times.
The
This is true.
reaction from Charles in the cooldown room after the video now widely circulated, where he asked Max before Lando got in there, how far out were you? And he goes 20, 22 seconds. And Charles' face, just like his eyes go wide. He's like, are you shit? We're in trouble.
Yeah.
You had Fernando Alonso like literally like crawling under McLaren's car to see what the hell was going on under there. Like people are like, something's up there, man.
Hey, man, look, what did we talk about in the off season? What did Zach Brown say? We are finally up to par with our wind tunnel and our car development to compete with everybody. And we are seeing the results. Like, I never thought it'd be this dramatic, but we are seeing the results. We may see a new dominant team emerging right now, at least one driver.
I think the car is absolutely undeniably there. I don't think I trust McLaren yet. I'm not fully certain that I trust Lando yet. Oscar I have more leeway for because he's younger. But it felt chaotic during the race. Like, Lando's race engineer comes on and he asks him, who are we racing right now? And I'm like, why are you asking your driver this right now? Why is Lando not asking you this right now? You're the one with all of the data. You're the one with all the information. Like, it still feels very chaotic. Whereas last year, Red Bull had the car, no doubt, but they also had the team. And even though things eventually throughout the season started to get really messy, most of the mess seemed like more of this year. McLaren, I still just don't trust yet. It feels like their factory settings got there before the whole rest of the team did, because the start was obviously still an issue, and it sounds like it's not just Lando, it's not just Oscar. There's something with the team there, but there's something about McLaren. I just don't know if they're ready yet. If you have the car like Max did last year, go out and win every single race. If you're winning a race by 22 seconds, and I know that it can be track specific, and I know that upgrades happen, but when we saw that car, and it makes it almost more sickening that he's only won 2 races so far this season. Like, I'm not yet sold on Lando. He did go ahead. He did get the win. But when you're winning by 20 plus seconds, that's the car. It is to me. And I need to see the rest of the team catch up and be a big, cohesive unit. And I do not have that trust in McLaren yet.
Let me play devil's advocate real quick, because I was watching the Sky Sports broadcast, and when that radio message came through, okay, Lando, who are we racing?
Thank you. Yeah,
I thought the same exact thing. I'm like, why the hell are you asking him? Like, shouldn't you? Like, you should know this. And Crofty did a really good job explaining that that's not them guessing what they're doing. That's them asking their driver, how does this feel? How are your tires? That it's code basically for like, how are we feeling right now? And Lando's response was, we're racing whoever's in front of us, which is his response to, we're going to go get met. Like, hey, I'm good.
Yeah,
we're good right
and
now.
earlier
he's saying, hey, how does everything feel?
He said something about like the pace, like the pace is good. Like, and he sounded very confident, which I was like, oh, That's different.
Yeah.
Like he's not afraid of the moment anymore.
No. There was, that wasn't so much McLaren going, at least my understanding is like, what are we doing here? It was kind of like, hey, how are we feeling right now? And Lando's was, no, I'm feeling good. Just like that. I'm feeling good. And that's what we saw too. We saw a confident Lando. That too is something we really haven't seen. He was starting to get in his own head. Maybe it's because people like us were talking about how terrible he is at starts, how he's fumbled away race after race, how he had to give a race win to his teammate. But this was a different Lando. This was a calm, cool, confident Lando Norris, and that should scare the shit out of anyone else on the grid.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's why I think we're setting up for one of the more fascinating second halves to a season, maybe rivaling 2021. I do think we could actually get to that point. And that's not to say that Red Bull's not going to because Checo finally did something first off.
Yeah, Checo had a good race.
Finally.
Max was still on the podium.
P6, that's not a bad race for Checo.
Yeah, that's still good
considering
points,
where that car is now.
And it's a lot better if you're going to lose to the nearest competitor or one of the closer competitors. It's a lot better to be P2 to behind P1, right? The point differential is just not that big. But we have a lot of races left, and if something goes wrong and there's a DNF or two, suddenly it's going to get real interesting. And I think because McLaren has demonstrated how strong their car is, I think we're setting up for it. I think we're going to have a hell of a finish this season.
And I think this weekend really speaks to that. What was the race where they let Oscar go ahead? I think they're going to keep every race. They're going to keep looking back at that and going, should we have done that? Should we have done that? That's a huge amount of points because everybody now is starting to go, okay, if Lando wins and gets fastest lap and if Max, they're starting to do the math and it's actually possible. Whereas at the beginning of the season, it looked so far off. But I bet they're looking back at that with every race going, what the fuck are we thinking?
So the difference there was 7 points. And if Lando somehow winds up in Abu Dhabi and at the end of that race is 6 points or 5 points behind Max, I think the only fair thing would be for Lando Norris to just slap every single race engineer, slap Zach Brown as well. I can tell you this, though, after that race, after that dominant performance, I don't think we're going to see that situation again where they go, okay, let Oscar through.
They can't.
Because now they're not. Now they're not in a.
It's winning.
They're not in a constructors fight now. I mean, they're still second in the constructors championship, but they are going to make that deficit up very quickly here over the next couple of races. They're now in a world drivers championship fight, something that we didn't think was possible at the beginning of the season. So I don't think we're going to have team orders anymore from McLaren.
And points on the table,
let me ask you this.
I think there's still 3 sprint races left too?
3 sprint races, yeah.
So there's a lot of points left to be had.
Would a win in Monza this upcoming week, would that start to change your perspective at all, Katie, on what's possible?
It depends how the team operates throughout the whole weekend.
Okay. That's fair.
I'm not a McLaren hater. I'm open to it. I'm so excited that right now we're not talking about the race behind Max. Well, if you eliminate Max, at least all last year, there were cool storylines, but there was never, ever, ever a race for the top. And we knew that from preseason testing. I love that we're having this conversation right now. I love being a bit of a low-key person being hard on McLaren because it's so much more fun to talk about than the alternative, which was just Red Bull last year. But show me. Do it again and again and again, because that's what Max did last year. That's what Red Bull did last year. Sergio's off in the field doing his own thing, but Max did it again and again and again and again. And something had to go seriously wrong for him to not win the race. Put that pressure on Lando. You've got the car. Let the team catch up. Let Lando catch up to that level of success where he's expected to win every race, because he's never had that in F1 anyways, lower levels, but.
I have nothing further to say. Katie just crushed it.
All right. No,
not everyone at once. Yeah.
I agree. No,
I am speechless. I am without speech.
We do have a little bit of breaking news that dropped down today, and we do have to have a moment of silence on the podcast tonight for our dear departed friend, fellow Florida man, Logan Sargent, who's no longer at Williams. He got the stanky old boot today. Logan Sargent, first American driver in God knows how long to be kicked out of an F1 team, being replaced by what's this guy's name? I don't even know.
Wow.
What? I don't. I've never heard this guy before.
Is it Franco or
Franco
Franco?
Colapinto?
Colapinto, which is a nice
Colapinto.
combination.
I was shocked at that.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
hear. So I saw a tweet like shortly before it happened that like rumblings that Logan Sargent's going to be out before the next race, and you're not going to believe who. Like, and no one will believe who's replacing him because everyone was thinking, well, it's going to be Liam Lawson or Mick Schumacher. No, it's this Argentine who probably a lot of people haven't heard of before. So Williams, I mean, just I don't. This isn't a Hail Mary, but also at the same time, you know, why are you going to put someone in your car, especially someone like Liam Lawson, who we all thought it could be, who is a Red Bull driver, who can then take the information about the Mercedes power unit back to Red Bull, or
Yep.
Mick Schumacher. Why are you going to get his hopes up about a return to F1 when you know that seat isn't open next year because Carlos Sainz is going to be in it? So it's a stopgap move for a team in the back of the grid. I don't disagree with it.
This is the bridge quarterback of F1.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
It's good that
But
he
it's good.
does get an F1 race, though, because we look at like a Nick DeVries situation where obviously that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But you get that tape out there, and I feel like that really did increase Nick DeVries' chances in getting a full seat in F1. He did nothing with it. But I think like to get in the car and then like if you get points or like you get close on your first race, if you're like kind of close to Alex, like teams are noticing that. Not that there's a lot of open vacancies, which we've talked about,
Right.
which kind of sucks that we're recycling a lot of the same guys. But yeah, I think it's big for him just to put some tape out there in an F1 car in F1 races.
Finish this sentence for me. Logan Sargent's F1 career was
Irrelevant.
Shit. We're among friends. Like, what the fuck is a
Yeah.
mile?
I think that's all there is to be said about Logan Sargent. Welcome to IndyCar next year, Logan. Can't wait to see you at the St. Petersburg Grand Prix.
See you in Long Beach.
I do have to pat myself on the back. I did text
Oh.
our group text. I think this is Logan's last race weekend in F1.
She did.
Yeah.
I have the
Yeah.
proof. I'm not
The
gonna show it, but I have
second
the
that
proof.
he crashed his and like before anything, like thank God he's okay. That crash was wild. Like we haven't seen a really,
Yeah.
really big one like that. Lance has had some. George.
Well, his
like,
teammate had one, and then he kicked him out of his car.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like Joe was obviously a big one, but in terms of like watching stuff like that as F1 fans live, like that was wild. Like watching
Yeah.
it and then hearing the reaction in Alex's voice, like, oh, that's a really big crash. Like I get goosebumps right now even thinking about it. But bro, why are you going that hard in free practice 3? Like that
Man.
was it for me. As soon he jumped out of the car and it was like he's not getting back into that car ever for the rest of his life. Like that moment for me was just like, yep, that's the rest of his time here, and it was.
It is surprising to me though that Williams somehow managed to bring an extra chassis to the Netherlands. I guess shipping costs are cheaper from England to Holland than England to Australia, but
Oh, and
I
that car was
digress.
just upgraded.
I know it was just upgraded and he ruined those upgrades.
Oof.
We knew thee well, Logan. Good luck in IndyCar next year. With the rumors are he's going to sign with Prema, which is going to join IndyCar next year. So
Eagle.
again, see you in St.
Nick.
Pete. Should be fun. Any other notes from the Dutch Grand Prix?
I just want to take a moment of silence too for Kevin Magnussen for getting quadruple overtaken on the start.
Oh
finish straight.
man,
I wish we could play the video of it. Somebody
Oh.
compared it to that scene in Cars where Lightning McQueen just gets passed by all these cars at once. I mean, like they showed the onboard and it was like, Lando
even laughed at him, I think,
So
in the
funny.
cooldown room because they were showing the highlight of it and they showed all 4 overtakes, and Lando goes, "Oh, 4, huh? Like, yikes, yikes, man! That man has a family. Chill."
And like
Cool.
Nico didn't have a bad race, but Nico had a bad weekend. Like
Yeah.
practice, like it felt like he just like could not for the life of
Haas-
him keep that
look,
car on the road
Haas
under
had a
any
bad weekend.
circumstances.
Haas had a bad weekend in general after all of their equipment got impounded after the race because they didn't pay their bills to Uralkali, who was their former sponsor, before they kicked them to
Yeah.
the curb because, something happened with the Russians. I don't know.
Yeah, nothing's coming to mind.
Yeah.
Get Gene on the line.
And I
Somebody
like
get Gene on the horn.
Gene Haas was so quick to say, this is, BS. We paid our bills when they clearly didn't. And then a statement was released that, their equipment was free to go because they paid their bill.
I have a
It's like,
request.
oh, so you didn't pay your bill.
We've made this request many times. By the way, that's how big business works. We know a few other people who've done that before. Gene, sell the team, please.
Yes.
Sell to Andretti. Get
Yeah,
out of the
please.
business.
Like, come on, man. Like, I get it. You want to be the American team, but Andretti needs to be the American team for the love of God. Quick fantasy check-in. It's not going well for me. Because Nick has both McLaren drivers. Nick has both Oscar and Lando who are killing it right now. Charles got me a couple points this week, but I was comfortably in first place pretty much all the season long. Now I am not comfortably in third place. I'm close to Katie, at least, Team All Hot. But bringing up the rears myself with 282 points, then Katie at 288, and then Nick with 335 points, building a dang near 50-point lead over Katie. Good Lord. And
Sean,
it's only going to grow.
I didn't realize that Nick had pick 1 and pick 2 for the McLarens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that seems so weird that we would have scheduled that way rather than doing a snake draft. Wow.
Is she being sarcastic?
Yes.
Oh.
You didn't draft a McLaren, Sean. This is your fault.
This is
you
your
didn't
fault.
have faith in your team.
I did.
Would you take Charles over a McLaren driver?
I did. I
Sucks
did.
to suck, doesn't it?
Would you have done the same thing if you were in my shoes with the number 1 overall pick?
No.
No, I would take Lewis.
I know
you
you
would
would have
take
taken
Lewis.
Lewis.
And I don't believe in Charles Leclerc enough to take him number 1 personally.
Well,
That's
the
just me.
Ferrari looked like the second best team because we weren't driving or we weren't picking Red Bulls. I picked Ferrari.
All I know is this. I was walking down the streets of downtown Indianapolis, just had a nice little tasty late breakfast at Cafe Pat Chow in downtown Indianapolis, and we were doing the text draft, and I was like, he's going, Charles Lando, send that pick in. He couldn't run that card up to the stage fast enough.
I will... Yeah, I'll forever regret that. Let's move on to Monza because it is race week once again. We are going
wait. Nope. Time for the most important segment of the day. No offense to Drew.
Oh, there's a guest. Hold on. We have a guest.
Is it Aaron? Is it Lando?
Hey, Lando.
This is
oh my God. This is pod debut. Hi, Lando. For those not watching, Lando is Sean's
my dog is just... Okay, bye, Lando. Where's he going? Oh, there he is. Say hi, Lando.
Hi, Lando. You're such a good boy.
Okay, bye, Lando.
I'm so happy he's finally made it. We've had 2 guests tonight. That's crazy.
I know. Cheers, Lando. I'm sorry, Katie. I didn't see it in the rundown, the vibes notes. I skipped past it. That is my fault. I flashed it myself.
I always forget to put it in the rundown.
So please enlighten us with your vibes notes for the Dutch Grand Prix.
For Dutch. For those newer listeners, I've just always done this since I started watching F1. I do it with football too, but those will never make the air. Those are way more unhinged. But yeah, I just take vibes notes and I try to keep them genuine, even though I know I'm going to have to read them on air. I'm trying to just keep them exactly as they would be if they were just in my inside voice. First point, maybe today is the day Lando doesn't lose the lead right off the line. Second point, Joe Biden voice. Look,
man.
And then I couldn't justify it, so I moved on to the next point. Just like Joe Biden, I just ended the sentence and then I pressed on. McLaren discussing plan A or B on the radio. They simply won't stop giving Ferrari 2022. Max's tires are numb alert. I've never heard him say that. He kept saying his tires were numb. I'm like,
yeah.
Ooh, and we talked about this in the group chat. This camera angle on the McLaren makes me feel feelings. That camera angle is so sweet.
The gimbal camera, yeah.
Ooh.
Oh,
yeah.
it's great.
The production nerd in me goes wild whenever that camera is on a car. And then I have, wow, that was a smooth overtake. It was. It looked really cool. McLaren having a full fireside chat about the plan on the radio. And then, did I just find out about Jack Doohan signing in 2025 from a very casual Alex Jakes? I didn't know that he had signed because I was behind most of the weekend because I hadn't watched quali yet. So I typically go on information lockdown, and then I found out during the race when he very casually said that. I cannot believe Logan Sargent is driving in this race. WTF is a kilometer. And that mostly spoke to like the team. The fact that they put that car back together is almost inconceivable to me. Slow stop city today. There were a ton of slow stops.
Yeah. And
Especially
did you notice
around like
there's-
midway through the race where it was like 3.5, 3.1, and like like Checo had a 3 point something, whereas I feel like with Checo we're used to like 2.2, 2.1.
Yeah.
I think the fastest pit stop was 2.4 from Yuki's team.
Yeah.
I think you're
Random.
right.
There were a lot of hot breaks. I think that might have had something to do with it.
That's why I'm happy I do these, because otherwise I forget stuff like that. An 18-second gap, wow, and then brackets shades of 2023 Red Bull. Lando was doing the most on these curbs. Can someone tell him he's out by 20 seconds?
Yeah. There was a couple times where he just took a ton of curb unnecessarily and then got a little loose. And I was like, yo, dude, what are you doing? Chill.
He was doing the most. It's like, brother,
You
just
wanted
like
the fastest lap, man.
he did, but you're ahead by like 25 minutes. Like, just relax, bro. Like, stay on the track. You have one job, and it's to finish the race. Like, I totally could see it going that way, where something happens, then he spins off into the gravel. And then, wow, he actually did it. Another 10 out of 10 call from Alex, my favorite broadcaster. And then the final point, he did not just say simply lovely at Max's home race.
Simply lovely, huh?
The simply lovely was so sweet and so endearing, but also a bit of a like huge flex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little shot across the bow, a little bit of a, hey, I'm here now.
Yeah. Look.
Tell everybody we back.
No, that's it. That was just Joe
You know what?
Biden
No.
voice. Look, and
You know-
then
you know what?
no, I couldn't justify him losing the lead again. I couldn't do it.
You know what Lando did, Nick? Hold the towel up. Hold it up.
Oh,
Hold it up, Nick. Lando Norris.
Lando Norris went to Zandvoort and realized that it was
He let
time
him
to
know.
let him know.
Yeah. See, we brought this podcast round full circle. Let's do Monza predictions real quick and get out of here, guys, because we're
Yeah, we
sitting
got
at
to
about
cut
an hour and
hate
a
or
half
love it.
now.
We're the length of a feature film right now. Sorry,
Exactly at
listeners.
this point. If you've stuck with us for this long,
Entering
thank you.
entering
Appreciate
like
it.
a Tarantino length here.
All right, let's give our predictions. Katie, go first.
Oh God, I wasn't prepared for this.
Vibes.
Buh. Okay, Monza. Yeah, Monza's coming up. That's very fast.
Temple of
Uh,
Speed.
P1, I'm gonna say it. Lewis. P2, Oscar. P3, Max.
Okay.
A
Nick,
lot
go
of
for
vibes
it.
happening there.
A lot of vibes.
Whoa, I just did the whole. I'm gonna go P1 Lando, P2
Okay.
Max. We're gonna repeat Zandvoort, P3 Charles Leclerc.
Okay. I'm going P1 Lando, P2 Oscar, P3 Charles. Got to put a Ferrari.
Okay.
Ran on Red Bull's downfall.
No, it's not just so much Red Bull's downfall. It's the fact that this is a track that McLaren have usually done well at. You think back to 2021 when you had Daniel and Lando finish
Danny
1
Rick.
and 2.
Yep.
So, with as strong as that Red Bull or as that McLaren, see, it's ingrained in my brain. I can't even like say as strong as that McLaren looks. Yeah, I'm going to take McLaren to go 1-2 and have a great
Yeah,
weekend.
I wanted to go Oscar P3, but the Italian connection was just like, all right, man. Charles looked really
Well,
good
Oscar
at
is
a different
Italian.
track.
And he's Monegasque, and he's French, and he's Australian. Oscar
Well,
is
he's
everything.
got 10 dads, so you know.
By the way, have we seen the Ferrari overalls they're wearing, the black and gold?
Mm,
Looks so sweet.
yes,
It
but
is, it
make
does
the
look
car
sweet.
black too. Why not?
Yeah, make the car black while you're doing it.
Don't give us the old HP blue treatment where you just put
No, please,
logos
for
all
love
over
of
the
God.
car.
I do love Monza though. It's a great old track. It's like there's nothing to it. It's pretty much almost a circle, just broken up into 2 spots. But it is great. It's a piece of history. So always fun.
There's
And it's
2
always good racing
chicanes,
there.
and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the shape of an L on
Uncle
your
Baz.
forehead. All right, that has been episode 45 of the Gridiron Podcast. Thanks to Drew Jones for joining us, fellow Steelers fans. She's welcome anytime. Yeah, guys, let's get ready for Monza, and we'll be back here, same bat time, same bat place next week.
It's race week.
Anything else?
Again, we never have anything else
No.
to say.
All right. For Nick Shook and Katie Caldwell, I am Sean Barie. And yeah, this has been episode 45 of the Gridiron Podcast. Good night.
Oh, you forgot this.
I read
And
it
to
earlier.
live life in the fast lane.
All right, you know what? If you'd like to email us, and we do appreciate your emails, you can email us at thegridironpodcast3@gmail.com. We promise we'll get an easier email address at some point. But for right now, it's thegridironpodcast3@gmail.com.
Oh, like we don't know people high up at Google. We're stuck with this.
Yeah,
This is us now.
Sean, I tried for like 25 minutes to find a better, less lengthy podcast name. This is what we got, baby.
You're doing great. Doing great, sweetie. For Nick and Katie, I'm Sean. Thanks for listening to episode 45 of the Gridiron Podcast again. And as always, live life in the fast lane.
And we skipped Hate It or Love It tonight, but I have a love. And it's that me and Sean will see each other on Friday and go and watch Kent Pitt. And Sean, this is probably the only time I've ever interrupted you, and it's the longest one that you weren't going to get mad about it. So
No, that's okay. I'm not. We're
go
gonna
Flashes, baby.
We're gonna make this weekend a movie, Nick. Let's go.
All right.
Good night,
Dutch.
Reagan.
Good night, Canada.
Good
and
night.
Pittsburgh.
Dutch.